So we're going to do a couple things today. This is more going to be about Gatsby than React, but this will be something to reference later after we've kind of progressed through some other things. But I'm working on this, so I figured might not be a bad idea to get some of this stuff recorded. So essentially what we're going to be doing is taking data from Jazz HR or Resumator or like whatever this weird thing is. So I've written a source plugin here that I will not be going over that basically just takes data from this API and shoves it into our Gatsby schema. So this is currently built and the data is fetching, and what we do is we go into this GraphQL graphical interface that after you've run build, you'll have this link here that will give you access in your Gatsby project to your GraphQL schema. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a query. So right now we're looking for, what is it, all Resumator job, right? So it takes the data from the API, and if there are multiple nodes on a type, it will create an all key that you can then get edges and your node. And then what we can do is look at this node type, which is type Resumator job. So we need a few of these keys, but we're going to do two things with them. So we need to build two different queries. One query is going to be for the careers page, which is a wreck right now because we've just changed some of our requirements. So we will not be implementing filtering currently. So typically what you do on a page is you're going to do an export of a query. I'm also learning a new keyboard. So export new query GraphQL, and we do backticks. So we're going to put our query in here. So we've exported this query. What Gatsby will do is when we build the project, it goes through all of the pages and all the components and looks for any exports that are of this type and basically runs those queries, and then we can count on some sort of data in here. And so we can use that data to build a job list. That's something I'm going to be doing maybe a little bit later. I'm a bit more interested in this, which is building individual pages using a template based on what data comes back. So this is typically a bigger query because we're going to need, like you can see here, we're pulling in articles, and then here we're pulling in studies, which is like this monster query. I'm going to refactor this so that some of these are kind of extracted, and we can make this a little bit easier to deal with. But basically what we're going to do is the same thing that's happening here. We're going to take a query and the data from that. We're going to find a template, or we're going to build a template, and then we're going to call createPage, which is a Gatsby API that allows you to create a page without putting a page into this. So it's programmatically creating pages, but it's built exactly for stuff like this. So if we're building a careers page, we need some job postings. So we're going to need a title. We're going to need, what else are we going to need? Probably our description. we're going to need a department. That data isn't really all there. Let's see what this gets us. So we can run these queries in here and we can take a look at what they are. So WordPress, engineering, Shopify developer, which would be engineering, I would assume. Senior Shopify developer. So we have all this in our query. So let's take this query and let's define a new query. So it'll be much like this, except it will be, let's call it jobs. And where's my equals? And we're going to do await GraphQL with backticks again. So we have this query. And I believe we name these queries here. So there's a couple different syntaxes. Okay, so we can just call it a query. Where, let's see, query, give that a save. This, we need to have this in brackets. So sometimes we want these, or sorry, in braces. So sometimes we want these in braces. When we export them from a page like this, they're not in braces. I think this has to do with the node implementation here. We're also awaiting that. So this will return these. So what we have to work with then is we will have like jobs.data. This is hard typing on a, I don't know if any of you guys use like alternative layout keyboards, but the ErgoDocs is kind of a monster, and it's like my second day using it, so it's kind of hard. So we will do all resumator jobs. And we're going to get, so what we have here is a little bit off, so I'm going to fix this because we don't actually need edges nodes. We can get away with this, which just gives us nodes. It's a little bit shorter syntax. I like it. So we will do that. We will change our query here. Let's just make sure we've got the right number of curlies there. We do. So give that a save again. Dot nodes dot map. So nodes are going to come in an array, so we can map through them. And map will give us our job. And then we can do this, and curlies are there. Wow, I maybe should have switched keyboards to something I'm more familiar with before recording this, but I don't mind. Watch me fail. It'll be great. So we have our nodes. We need a template. Basically, what we have here is not going to give us anything until we have a template. So my template's here. I haven't quite decided really on how I want this section of the project to work. But essentially, we have folders and then index.js in there because we're not using our templates very often. Like, we're not going to go in and edit these. These are going to be relatively static. So this is a copy of the article template, which essentially just, oh, it has its own query. Okay, I think I'm doing something a bit different in here than we'll be doing. Well, let's build this from scratch. Yeah, this is jobs. So we're going to import React from, these are not quotes anymore. Import React from React. And so let's just do the simplest. Export default. And we will do a function component. We're going to feed this data at some point. But for right now, we're going to take props and we're going to just spit out oh my god, this is a wreck. So we're going to spit out JSON stringify props. Why is this complaining? Yeah, it does. It's right there. Okay. So we're going to export default that. Oh, it's because I'm missing a curly. Yeah. Not the most useful errors. So here we're going to get our template. And we're going to be importing that from job. So essentially we're using node path resolve to go into our templates folder and get our template from job. And we're going to be mapping through using the createPage API and doing really the exact same thing that we're doing to create these other pages. But we're at like 200 lines on this, so this is really due for a refactor. This is unruly. Okay, so we're going to do jobs for now. Will be our sub route. This will be a spread of job, and we will call it job, which essentially we can shorten to this. I will explain that at another time, because that's just some JS stuff that we're doing. Expected return value. Yeah, we don't need these curlies because we're doing an implicit return. So basically, we're running createPage. We're feeding it a path so that it knows, you know, what path in the site this should work on. And then we've got our job template. So we're feeding it that component here, which is just part of the createPage API. And then in context, we're able to pass props. So what we're going to be seeing here, I believe is going to be an object with some like routing data and stuff like that from Reach Router, some other stuff from Gatsby, and then it'll give us a key called page context, and in that will be our job data, and then we can kind of build the template out from there. So I'm going to give that a save, and this I'm going to put on the back burner. So if I don't save that, we should be fine. I need to restart the build process because it won't pick up. Gatsby will pick up on page changes within the React project, but if you change like the Gatsby node or something in one of the if you're using like custom plugins, that sort of thing, you have to restart the project, which is fine. You can't expect it to do everything, but it does quite a bit. Okay, so cannot read property nodes of undefined. Okay, so our query is failing. Failed to fetch. Let's wait for this to finish rebuilding and make sure that our query is not busted. You may be looking at this and see something that I don't. jobs, data, nodes. Okay. So we're going into some of our static queries now. You can see in the build process here, we're just running some queries. That's exciting. It's not exciting. This is something that probably needs to improve as far as Gatsby's build time stuff goes. These are basically studies and articles that we're pulling in, and I'm limiting it to 25 here, and our case studies are coming from like a custom Drupal instance, so there's not very much going on in there. So like this build time is kind of absurd for what we're actually doing. Okay, so this works. Okay, so all resumator job, singular, not plural. So yeah, all that wait time just to figure out that that's the issue. So all resumator job nodes, which is an array, and we are jobs data. This is correct. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's also, just for now, and start again, see if we get those pages built out. Well, no, because it won't throw an error. So this is one thing that Gatsby does pretty well, is when something changes in like your Gatsby node file, it will invalidate the cache and rebuild it. If you have problems with anything in the build process with Gatsby, one of the first things you want to do is just recursively remove the ooh, this is fun. Create a page with a component that doesn't exist. Oh, do I not exist yet? Oh. Naming things is hard. Job. That's actually correct, because we want that to be job. Cool. Stupid mistakes here, but all things you will run into. Yeah, the more templates I see in here, the more this needs to really just, we need to flatten this out, and this needs to just be, you know, job.js and article.js, because these should never be too complex. Essentially, what we're going to end up doing here is bringing in our layout. That's not quotes, that's semicolons. That's weird. I need to make that quotes. I'm keeping notes of all the keys that I consistently mistype on so that I can fix them later. So what we want is components, layout. So we're going to end up wrapping this in layout. Maybe we got that save in before all this other stuff was in here. What we'll end up doing is passing header data, which is essentially going to pass data to our header component. And so we pass an object, and that will take a title, and we will basically pass it the proper title when we get the props. I'll show you how to kind of dig through those. That'll be fun. We don't have errors. Okay, so we have careers. So we need to go to like a missing path here, and then we find jobs. Cool. For front-end web developer. So this is a JSON stringify of all the data that's there. Fantastic. And we've got our layout component, but we don't have our title. So let's see here. We've got location, we've got job, which is in page context. God, this is nearly impossible to read. I apologize. I just did a raw stringify. I didn't put it in pre-tags or anything. But basically what we need to do here is destructure this, and so we need page context. And then from there, we can pull our job off of that. I don't like equals being there. I want it here. That is a dash right now. God, this is going to be a nightmare to get totally acquainted with. So our job is is created, false, job title. Okay, so we're going to do more dynamic destructuring here. This is fun. So basically we're pulling job off of page context, and we're pulling page context off of props proper, which is all of this stuff that we really don't need. Like, we don't need the path name in here. So some of this stuff is useful on some pages when you generate them, so that they're maybe aware of, you know, what they are. But for our purposes, like, we really don't need this. So our title is going to be job.title. And then this, for right now, will be we'll do it this way. This will be job.description. I'm going to title this video, "Watch Me Fail at Typing." Okay, so now we see this updated. And so we have our title coming in here. This is great. That's what we want. But our description is not plain text. It's something that's coming through with all this HTML. And so we have to do something that I hate doing, but is sometimes necessary. And that's dangerously set inner HTML. Now, this is something that you'll run into from time to time. But basically what you have to do here is acknowledge that what you're doing opens your front end to some vulnerabilities. So we're going to be passing in job description here to this intentionally kludgy API. And they do this because clearly just setting HTML from an unknown source, as far as React is concerned, can be dangerous. So this is in here. All right, now we have some lists and stuff. The HTML is formatting properly. We'll go ahead and put this in a full width section. And that's something that we'll get into probably at another time. So we have this full width section, and then we can add some padding. I'm not sure if I set this API up. No, that's not correct. Okay, now, so we will import CSS from, this is going to be emotion, right, so then I'm just doing a little bit of styling here. We want backticks again. Need to move my arrow keys. So CSS, and then we can do padding in here, which is going to be 3 rem. Right? Okay. So there's a little bit of padding in there. What did that do? It seems to have done away with some of the description. Oh, I get you. I believe it is hiding up here. Okay, so we have this front-end web developer position here, and we have done that to each position that is coming in from Resumator. So that seems useful, but we still need to list these jobs somewhere, right? So we need to take probably that same query, which we can grab from here, post here, and then we get it somewhere in the data on this. So what I'm going to do is just log out our data and find out where this query data comes in. So in order to do this, we're going to need to rebuild again, I believe, for that query to run. Yeah. Actually, I think that probably has to be in braces. That's wrong. Okay. Object is not a function. Let's take a look at our insights page. Okay, so this is a static query component. So what I'm doing here is probably correct for what we want to do. And then we pass it this like render prop. No, this is ugly. So we're going to go and we're going to do use static query is what we're going to do. So we're going to import static query. And this is on quotes. Okay, yeah, that's correct. This is just going to be wrong all the time. So we're going to do use static query, and then so we're going to do data equals. Do we await use static query? I think I'm using this somewhere else in the project. Oh, it's used in. Okay, so they pick it off here. Okay, so no, you don't await it. It does its own thing. Nice. So use static query is a React hook. That is the new hotness. I'm really torn on it. I'm currently using a lot of hooks for this particular project, just kind of see how they feel. But I'm a longtime believer in class components. They've worked out a lot of really tough problems with them. Um, so we're going to do data equals use static query, and we give that GraphQL. How are we using that in here? Yeah, so this is where they go back to GraphQL as a tagged template versus a function, which confuses me a bit because they use it in different places differently. It's a little bit odd. I'm sure there are rules for that that I just can't be bothered right now to completely figure out. So we're going to take the same query and throw it in here. And we'll see what we get. So that says it's compiled successfully. Object is not a function. Okay. See, this is a really interesting error. So we'll just see what this, we're not going to destructure any information coming out of it. Is there any difference in the way that I'm using this? So site is use static query, GraphQL. Okay, so we're tagging the query, which maybe isn't running. May need to import the correct GraphQL, because what we're importing is from GraphQL Compose. That's so. Sometimes things will dynamically import, and they're not correct. So it'll import, you know, whatever it wants, and sometimes that will screw your whole project up. So that's sometimes pretty hard to catch. So we want GraphQL from GraphQL, or GraphQL from Gatsby, just like it is here. So yeah, that should be correct. All right, so now in our console, we should have an object with this. Yay! Okay, so now we can use this to list out our jobs. So we'll do that real quick, and then I'll put this all to bed because, yeah. And then it's, what's the emit shortcut here? Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to do data dot all. This needs to be in curlies because we are doing JSX, and so we're going to take that data, all nodes, all resumator jobs, job dot nodes dot map. So again, we have a job here. And we're going to return a list with the job dot title. All right, so this should give us a list of our jobs. Fantastic. All right, so it looks like the header needs some positioning work here. But other than that, we're in a good spot. Oh, actually, it isn't that. It's our full width section. That's a whole other problem. So full width section has like a default defined height. Um, so I think I need to just change that out. But anyway, hopefully this was informative on kind of dynamically generating pages in like our Gatsby node, where once we've imported everything that we need in the build process through this custom plugin here, which is just a source plugin that pulls this data, we can then write a query, define a template, and generate pages with routes and everything from that, just raw during the build process. So we also covered use static query, which is probably better than the static query component because that uses render props, which I never really thought was a great API in the first place. Don't tell Kent Dodds I said that. This is much cleaner and better. Clean up that log there, and we'll style this list, which will take me probably hours. So we got this. Hopefully that's informative.